What is going on? Welcome back to Trending Stocks. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, go over some of the current data points, what might cause some volatility, and where I see things going from here. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that said, let's get right to it. So SoFi did go down 3.43% on Friday, and that was largely as a result of Bank of America, JP Morgan unveiling their earnings and not necessarily being where the market really wanted, or it wasn't necessarily what the market wanted to hear, because it did show a lot of signs of slowing. So based on Friday and somewhat on Thursday, that started to really kill SoFi's technicals. And even when it comes down to this upcoming week, starting on Tuesday, because Monday is a holiday on a side note, but Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley are going to be unveiling their earnings. So we'll just have to see what they actually do give for future guidance and what their metrics do say. Because if their earnings are very similar to Friday's, so Bank of America, JP Morgan, Citi's was somewhat neutral, but if it is very similar to that, then you are going to see a continuation of a sell-off with SoFi. As backwards as that is, even though SoFi is going to be unveiling their earnings in about 9 business days or trading days, and most likely their member growth is going to be through the roof, and every other metric that investors care about are going to be amazing. My own opinion, of course, not a financial advisor, but technically, just Wall Street likes to count SoFi as a bank. So this is why the technicals, even for instance, the Elliott wave that I did bring up over, I think 2 videos ago, it is showing for a significant sell-off. It's showing a pivot point of $9.41. And for as long as SoFi is trading below that, it is anticipated to go anywhere between $5.82 and $6.40 in the short term. So that's something to kind of continue to watch. And despite the technical sell-off that has been happening with SoFi, you do see shorts acting very weird. So on Friday, with broader fears that's been starting to rise, shorts were doubling down massively on a lot of stocks. Not necessarily with SoFi, even though they have more than enough ammunition, but on Friday, shorts did return 159,000 shares. So maybe shorts are finding some sort of value in SoFi, or maybe they are under the impression that, similar to us as investors are aware of, that they're going to have home run earnings. I'm not really sure. This was just very, very odd for a Friday kind of scenario. And a couple other things to note for this upcoming week. Data point wise, there's only one thing to watch, and that is coming out on Wednesday, January the 17th. And that is going to be core retail sales. A lot of institutions are going to be really looking at this type of data to see if there's any sort of cracks, because a lot of people are just waiting on the sidelines and ready to shout, hey, look, there's a recession, everyone mass panic and whatever else. So again, this data definitely does need to be very good. If not, this is going to result in a tentative sell-off. Once again, my own opinion on that. There hasn't been any recent news from SoFi, no SEC filings, nothing like that, so it has been relatively quiet. The latest round of 13Fs do show a lot of new positions, so everything in green does show within Q4. Institutions were making brand new positions, and aside from that, a lot of institutions actually were increasing, about 83%, 139, but then again, they had a small amount behind the scenes anyways. But Parkside also did increase 0.35. They had a good sum of shares. And yeah, so that's pretty good stuff behind the scenes. Fidelity's been increasing, a small handful kind of returned, but still, I feel like a lot of people have started to really see a lot of good value in SoFi, as what us retail investors are very much aware of. But moving on, when it comes down to this upcoming week for options, looking at the open interest, there is a consensus that it is going to be above roughly around $9. So a lot more optimism when it comes down to that. And keep in mind that if SoFi is able to stay above 750, there's going to be 53,000 call options at the 750 strike price that is going to be exercised. And that does mean market makers are going to have to cover that. So you will see a nice corresponding bump up in the stock price. So that might be a fairly good thing. And similar nature, if SoFi is somehow able to get above $9, then you're going to see around another bump up, because 43,000 is at the open interest at $9. So kind of interesting stuff behind the scenes. I actually did sell some puts, so at the $8 strike price, and the fact that SoFi did close below 8, that means I'm going to be getting about 700 new shares at $8. So that's the benefit of doing options. Always suggest in researching them, because options are a beast of their own. But this is why time and time again, I absolutely love to sell covered calls and sell puts. even for this upcoming week. For instance, if you feel like SoFi is going to go down, you can always sell $7 puts. If for any reason, if it does go below 7, then you get to buy it at 7. If it doesn't, you get the premium. So in my opinion, it's kind of a win-win. Let me know in the comments if you guys do options and what you have been doing. Obviously, vice versa, if you do feel like it's going to just go straight down, you can always just buy a put, but you guys do you. When it comes down to the technicals, like I talked on the Elliott wave vaguely, some support and resistance points to really watch for. With it at 789, it is trading between this S2 and this S1. So in comparison to other growth stocks, it is somewhat lagging. So just kind of keep note of that. But 771 is going to be the next strong support, and 810, which kind of broke past or above it on Friday, but that is going to be the next strong resistance. And then aside from that, just take note of a lot of the other support and resistance points when it comes down to that. SoFi, looking at the momentum indicator, shows number of retail investors have been getting out. So that's kind of interesting to note. I'm not really sure why, because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of high expectations for this upcoming earnings, as do analysts, with the exception of KBW. I think that gave a crazy 650 price target. But I feel like there is a good consensus that we are going to have home run earnings. So it's kind of weird to see that SoFi investors are getting out. Stochastic is at 9, no actual trend right now, but it is considered oversold. So if there is a good piece of news that does come out for SoFi, or potentially when it comes to this upcoming earnings from Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, or retail sales that is coming out on Wednesday, then you could see some value investors coming into SoFi, causing the stock price to go up. So let me know your thoughts on SoFi. I feel like right now, as it stands, if nothing really changes, it is going to trend down, largely because of the technicals. But hopefully there is going to be some value investors that do come in as a result of maybe good earnings, or, like I said, the data points. But then again, when it comes down to SoFi, a lot of this is just short-term noise. If you do believe in SoFi bigger picture, don't worry about the day-to-day movements. I do want to quickly play this video, only about like 2 minutes of this, because it talks on banks, on how they could see upside in the foreseeable future and potentially why. So I feel like a lot of SoFi investors would get a lot out of this. So let me know your thoughts.
Ending the day mostly lower, except Citi after posting mixed fourth quarter results. Let's bring in RBC Capital Markets' Gerard Cassidy and our own Leslie Picker. Leslie, a lot of noise in these bank reports, the numbers, and trying to understand if there's any overall message for investors and what to look for heading into next week, and especially for the regional bank earnings has been difficult, at least for me. What's your read?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It was definitely a noisy quarter. A lot of that was due to the FDIC special assessment, which was levied on the banks. It's basically what they owe the FDIC insurance fund to make up for the shortfall that they endured as a result of some of the regional bank failures from last spring. In terms of the read-through, I think for the regional banking community, a lot of it will stem from kind of the outlook for net interest income, which was a mixed picture, although largely across the street very asset sensitive. So when you see rates go lower, as they did in the fourth quarter, that is a headwind for net interest income, that profitability metric for loan making. So the regional banks are even more exposed to that trend. So I think that's something that investors will be acutely focused on as they start to report.
Okay, so Gerard, I think it was Moynihan who said that higher rates and the stability generally good for them. Does that read across big banks? Is it just for big banks, or how should we think about how that affects the regionals?
John, I think you put your thumb on it. It's beneficial for all of them. In fact, what I thought was interesting today, just about every bank, when they gave their guidance for 2024 net interest revenue, they were using the forward curve as their guide. The forward curve right now is calling for 6 Fed fund rate cuts. And if we don't see the 6 Fed fund rate cuts, let's say we only see 2 or 3, that higher for longer scenario then perseveres. And to your point, John, that's very positive for not only Bank of America and the other large banks, but for the regional banks as well.
And for SoFi. And yeah, so pretty interesting stuff. Interesting statue, definitely. But yeah, aside from that, I feel like a lot of this does hit home to SoFi and its investors. And so yeah, I think bigger and better things are going to be coming down the pipeline. Just 9 trading days left until SoFi's earnings. I have been monitoring to see if any analysts do any changes for maybe some estimates for earnings per share or revenue. There has been no changes, but I'll give you guys updates as soon as I see them. So let me know your thoughts. Have you been buying SoFi? Have you been selling? What have you been doing with SoFi? And potentially throw your estimate in the comments below where you think SoFi will be by this Friday. If I was to give an estimate, I feel like, assuming obviously similar nature, the earnings are going to be bad, I feel like it is going to be between this S3 and this S2. I don't agree with the Elliott wave that it'll be kind of between high 5s to low 6s. Possibly it could come, but I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, unless maybe Wedbush does give another maybe $3 or $2 price target. That might be the dagger causing SoFi to go down to those levels, but we'll just have to wait and see. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend, or I guess a long weekend. And with that said, I appreciate all of you watching.